creating customer avatars for your meta ads. This is actually more important than anybody can actually articulate to you in 2026. This is going to be one of the differences between whether your ad account and your business grows post-Andromeda or whether you stay in that below 20 to 30% of people who simply just keep in that testing and repeat cycle. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. Now, before we actually talk about how to actually create the customer avatars, I want to speak about the old way when it came to meta advertising. So what used to happen was you would have your audience that you would set on the ad set level, and you would move in and you would make 15 to 20 unique creatives, or you just have maybe 10 to 15 creatives, and you'd have 5 hooks, 3 bodies, 1 CTA, and that would give you your matrix. That all changed in July of 2025 when they actually released Andromeda. And sorry, now my handwriting's pretty bad. That all changed, and the new way basically became personas. So you would make a batch of maybe 15 to 20 creatives, 15 to 20 creatives, and 15 to 20 creatives, and they would determine who your ads go out to. And that would go to, let's say, your persona A, persona B, or persona C. Now, the key lesson that I want you to understand and take from this video is that messaging controls targeting. So what do I mean by this? What we say now in the ad is more important than ever. What we say in our creative determines who our creative goes out to. If our creatives are just speaking to a basic audience, or if we keep the old way, what's going to happen is the creative here is just going to get spread out, and your algorithm is not going to know who it's speaking to, and it's going to keep you in that stage of, let's say, your learning limited phase, your learning mode, or it will never give your pixel the chance to actually see, okay, this is a conversion, I just said pixel, this is a conversion that has led me to finding my pocket audience, which is my persona. So super important that you understand what messaging and controlling targeting actually is. Now, what do people define as your ICP? Well, your ICP means that you have one buyer, and these personas and avatars are subsets of your ICP. So for example, your ICP could be 25% of the market. However, within that 25%, you could have 4 to 5 or 6 personas. Now, one thing to note as well is on the stadium pitch, Chet Holmes stadium selling model, about 3% of your market are in market. These are the people that we want to be speaking to in our ads. But as we start to scale and as we start to spend more money, what's going to happen is we're going to scale out of our in market and we're going to start scaling into our needs convinced. This means that we have colder audiences that are going to require new types of messaging. They're going to require new ways of speaking to people. They're going to require a bit more education, a bit more know, like, and trust assets. So that's super important for you to note as well is, yes, we have the personas here, and these personas can all be warm at the start. But what will happen is eventually we will start to scale out of the in-market and more into the needs convinced section. And that is where the scale truly happens, cold scaling on Meta. Now, there's 2 ways you can actually segment based on your personas and your ICP when you are developing your customer personas. You can do it by demographics, so by age, location, or gender, or by psychographics. We have tested both of these inside the accounts, right? On all the accounts we're working on, all the info offers we work with. And what we've seen to work best is actually psychographics. Why? Because somebody technically who is 25, somebody who's 45, somebody who's 53, 67, they technically can all have the same behaviors, their views, they could have the same circumstances, problems, and outcomes that as to why they're stuck, they could have the same worldviews. Whereas if you are segmenting by demographic, you're kind of handicapping yourself in a sense that you are limiting yourself to who you can speak to in your ads. You're limiting yourself to pigeonholing yourself into a specific demographic. And look, we've done that. How do we know? Because we've made that mistake. Trust me, we learned the hard way. So psychographic is always what I would bias towards when it comes to it. So that's one thing I would say to you. So again, key lesson, take it away. Messaging controls targeting. Messaging controls who you target within your ads. Every single piece of your ICP, you don't just have one customer. You have different subsets of your customers that you can speak to using the stadium selling model and being smart about it. Now, most important part of the video, how do you actually make a persona for your offer? So step 1, you actually use your research phase. So determine who you wish to speak to. What's their awareness level? What's their sophistication level? If you haven't already, you need to read Breakthrough Advertising or find a PDF and feed it to your copywriting Claude or your copywriting Jeremy AI, Utari, your Manus, whatever you use. Are they problem solution, or is this completely an unaware audience? This will determine whether you are speaking to your in-market, your needs convinced, thinking they're not interested, and definitely not interested. These all tie back to Eugene Schwartz's principles. Most offers growing, watching this, will have an ICP set in stone already, right? You have an ICP, you know who you speak to, you have that target audience that you always want to speak to, but you simply have never done the exercise here, or you've simply done it incorrectly. So you want to make sure that you're finding your personas from within your subsets. Now, the extraction phase. I'm going to show you how to find them. Compile all of your sales calls from, let's say, the 90 to last, let's say, 3 to 6 months. You're going to want to put them into your LLM, and you're going to want to give them a specific prompt. For example, basically, based on all of these transcripts, I want you to bucket each one of these personas or each one of these transcripts into specific blocks. Persona A, X, persona B, Y, persona C, Z. I want you to pull and extract each one from their sales calls, each one of the circumstances, problems, and outcomes that they had, their specific reframes that were used by the sales team, and why they were stuck in their own words. I want you to pull all of these, take all of the transcripts, and put them into buckets. From there, you could have maybe 2 to 3 to 4 personas that you pick up from this bucket. Exactly like I said here, mine each call for specific circumstances, problems, desired outcomes in their own words. Take one thing from this video in their own words. This gives you the sauce, this gives you the angles, this gives you everything, because the best way to speak to your audience, the best way to put it in front of them is to speak to them in their own words. Now, the execution phase, right? Before I show that, I'll show the extraction phase. So for example, we took one of our clients, we took 60 sales calls here, as you can see, got all of the transcripts, all of them, put them all into another base down transcripts, and that gave us 3 personas. So we went from 60 to 45 based on discovery and sales calls to 3 main personas. And what we found here was persona 1 was 95% of our audience, persona 2 was 3%, and this was 2%. So as you can see, we don't just have one. You could have 40 calls here. You bring that down to maybe 25. And then what you do then is you put them all into your LLM, and you could get 3 to 5 just for this offer here. We had 3. Now, execution phase. Once you've compiled an individual IC or CPO document per person per call, prompt your LLM to compile them into buckets. Like I said, typically 3 to 5 personas per offer, and avoid overly niche audience. This will limit your reach. Now, to finish up, what does this actually fuel? From this and from your personas, this then allows you to create ad scripts, copy, and funnel architecture for messaging congruency. Congruency in messaging is super important. If you say what you say in your ad has to match what you say in your body copy, has to match what you say in your headline, has to match what you say in your funnel, whether that is a VSL funnel, whether that's a Webby opt-in funnel, all has to match for Meta to be able to push out to the right people, and for your audience to understand and be like, okay, he's speaking directly to me. And then your pre-call assets, which is super important, your objection content, your emails, and your hammer them content remarketing sequence. So to sum this up, what's actually the most important thing and how do you create the avatars? You simply find what your messaging wants to be. You bucket that, you take your main ICP, break it down into subsets that you believe that you have inside your business. Take all of your sales calls, all of your testimonials, all of your case studies, compile them all together in individual documents, get each of the problems and circumstances of outcomes from those documents, and then compile them then into 3 different persona buckets. And that is exactly how you create personas for your meta ads. And what this fuels, and again, your congruency in your ad scripts, your copy, your funnel architecture. This is the most important thing in the world post-Andromeda. And also your pre-call assets to make sure that your calls go from education calls to sales calls. People are pre-framed. People have handled all of their objections before the call even takes place. If you like this video, make sure to drop it a like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.